Kicking us off will be your Assistant State Superintendent of Education, Dr. Jimmy Hall, whom we've gotten to know and just has a really tremendous heart and love for CTE and is leading Alabama in a very, very unique way to take you ahead as far as education and particularly in CTE goes. Then we will be joined by Nick Moore, my very good friend, one of the first people I really started working with in Alabama on Learning Blade. He serves as the education policy and advisor and coordinator for the Governor's Office of Education and Workforce Transformation, the office that he leads with the governor in her amazing work to really lead Alabama. You may know that Alabama came up as one of the top 10 states in terms of during this COVID time, in terms of what you were doing in digital learning. So just really thrilled to have Nick joining us this afternoon. And then we will hear from Gina McCarley with the computer science department, really with the A+ College Ready group. They're doing a lot of the computer science training. And so be nice to hear the work that they're engaged in and how that can be helpful to you all. And then we're going to hear, as I said, from a teacher definitely in the trenches during the COVID pandemic that we are still currently in, apparently. Marie Moore, who is going to be able to share a little bit about what she's been doing. As was mentioned, I'm Sheila Boyington. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Learning Blade, as well as I serve as the National States Chair for Million Mentors and work as an advisory council co-chair for the Women Business Collaborative. I'm an engineer by training. And so this is very near and dear to Alabama, but I'm a Florida Gator. Sorry, you guys have been killing us anyway, but I love Alabama for the work that you're doing here. So I want to start off really to tell you a little bit about Learning Blade for those of you that don't know, just a 2-minute kind of update of what we are trying to do. You know, Learning Blade was created in a way to actually help really open the playing field for students to understand and adults too to understand what are the great careers that are out there in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, and computer science, and really in career and technical education as well. You know, a lot of times we think about STEM and computer science as it relates to really the 4-year degrees. And what we really feel is that the important thing is that, you know, this isn't just about 4-year degrees, STEM and computer science. It really is also about the great careers that can happen in 2-year and credentialing programs that you guys have at your community colleges and with the workforce centers. So it's really important to understand that at the outset. And what we're trying to do is give the students, give individuals in Alabama exposure to these great careers. So we do this through a mission concept that you see here. We currently have 12 different missions that follow a wide range of careers and technologies: biomedical, construction, energy, agriculture. You know, we've got to feed everyone on Earth, as well as looking at transportation and definitely manufacturing. You know, we try to also include things like entrepreneurship and business because we want to define STEM and computer science very broadly. As you can see on the right, kind of some samples of a little bit of what our platform looks like, where students are either able to select a mission or teachers or staff can assign a mission for them, as well as definitely what one of our dashboards looks like, where people are able to launch our learning modules from. If we go to the next screen, you know, each of our missions include, as I mentioned, STEM careers and technologies. So the careers are things like that you see at the bottom and what we call teammates. So anything from a welder to an engineer to all of those really broad range. And this is a sample of one of the 12 different missions we have. The things in orange circles are tools that are at the top, which are what we call our STEM technologies. And I think, you know, this is really valuable when you think about the great employers you have in the state, like the Mercedes, et cetera. You know, having people understand a little bit more about manufacturing, specifically in the context of a car, automotive, is really, really valuable. So I think this is a great opportunity for individuals within the state of Alabama to learn a little bit about these different careers. If we go to the next screen, just quickly, I wanted to tell you, you know, each of our missions include a very robust suite of resources. We have our interactive lessons that are online lessons that are designed to really help students and individuals learn a little bit about these different careers in a contextual setting. We have design thinking, which allows individuals to use a 5-step design thinking process to innovate, so that, we're not just spoon feeding individuals and students, et cetera, really trying to help them learn the skills of innovating and ideating around a particular topic. We have career videos that show kids and show individuals 50 different careers with real life experiences, so they can kind of get a day in the life of. And we offer some coding activities based on code.org materials, certainly aligning with some of the work that's going on with your A+ group as well. Our hands-on project-based learning lessons are a little bit different. A lot of times, you need expensive equipment to do project-based learning. But what we tried to do was design this in a way that you can do this with common materials that you might find in any setting that you might happen to be in. So for example, if we're trying to teach force, we can talk about pencils, pennies, and rulers and be able to actually demonstrate how force can be calculated. We also offer some 3D printing examples for actually what I like to consider being additive manufacturing, taking you from soup to nuts around manufacturing. So you actually can ideate, create something. We use some of the free online resources like Thingiverse and Tinkercad to actually design something, maybe for example, stay on the car theme, a car, the different kinds of wheels that it might have. Then you can print it with a 3D printer, and then you can actually do an experiment with it. So it's really soup to nuts around additive manufacturing and helping individuals see how 3D printing can be used in a manufacturing setting. We also offer some parent discussions, just an opportunity for individuals to be able to have a conversation in their home around the different types of things. I love to tell people, just look around your home and really decide if there's anything in your home that did not have some kind of STEM or computer science person working on it. It's impossible to find because they're involved in everything. And then we offer some paper craft for our younger set to help students and others, build an origami around a particular career or technology. So a very, very broad range of subjects. If we go to the next screen. Yes, so we do have this Intro to Computer Science module, which does let you quickly in 2 hours get an introduction to the different kinds of technologies and careers that are in computer science. And we actually have some data that shows that we are increasing people's interest in computer science careers as well. If we go to the next screen, and we definitely have the expert on here with Dr. Hall talking a little bit about Perkins 5. We will talk about that. Anyone in the state of Alabama, any organization can register for a free account at learningblade.com/AL. And we'll certainly review some of that as well a little bit later. If we go to the next screen, it's not often that we get to come up with, really and connect with people whom we really are aligned in our thinking. Dr. Hall's one of those people that we had the opportunity to meet with as he was coming into this role of leading Alabama in your career and technical education. We've been just thrilled to be able to be partnered with CTE over this last year, and just appreciate his leadership and sort of his vision for what this looks like. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Hall and let him take you through a little bit about what he's working on, and then we'll come back and maybe ask him a question or two.
All right. Well, thank you, Sheila. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you. I first encountered Josh and Sheila in Learning Blade when I was a career tech director in Elmore County, where I served there for 6 years. Before that, I was a high school principal at Hopeful High School, also in Elmore County. So I've got a fairly diverse background. I've been here at the State Department since July 1st, and we're moving in a good direction. Josh, go on to the next slide. I want to cover these points. I certainly don't want to step on anyone's time. I can get off track from time to time. So if I go too long, Sheila, just give me the.
You got plenty of time. Take it.
What I wanted to talk about and focus on today is our efforts to do a better job of creating better awareness and improving perceptions down into middle grades and elementary grades in K-12. I think that's a big piece that we are, it's hurting us in the grand scheme of things. And then when we get students into the ninth grade, decisions are made and plans have been made, and they haven't really had all the data and all the information that they needed down in the early grades, especially also parents. We know parents are more involved with their kids' education down in the elementary grades and early middle grades. And so if we can get those, the parents and the teachers, and the students, as well as the non-CTE teachers, better informed and get them a better understanding of what career tech education is about, how it connects directly in the workforce, and how it builds on a workforce development piece and grander scheme, the better off that we're all going to be. So one of the things that we're working on is a K-12 framework. It's really more of a career development model, and it's really more of a tweak on the current kind of counseling program that we're doing in the state. There's much more information to come on that, but as I said before, the goal is for us to, as early as first grade, begin planting the seeds of clusters, pathways, programs down in the lower grades, so students begin to understand the connection and the purpose of education into the workforce. And whether you're going to college or not is irrelevant. It has nothing to do with career tech. Everyone needs to be in career tech, whether they're going to college or not, because we want our kids to go to college. We want them to get a job too, right? So they need to kind of experience a career tech education world as well. So we want all of our students to explore and get the preparation necessary in the K-12 environment. So that's an area that we're working on. Another initiative that we're going to build in, and the education budget is not approved yet, but it's looking really good in career tech. We're looking for a pretty large increase in the career tech initiative, and it's going to allow us to open up middle school program expansion grants. And so that information will come out later once the budget is approved, and that will be something that we probably roll out this summer going into the fall. That would be fiscal year 22 money that could be spent for expanding or supporting or growing middle grade programs. We can do more in the middle schools and middle grades across the state. And what we would like to be able to do is see that STEM and computer science kind of be the vehicle that drives that, because we feel like STEM and computer science connect in some form or fashion to all of our clusters and all of our programs. And so, and we feel like that age gets really excited about STEM activities and computer science activities. We feel like parents would be supportive, and teachers would be very supportive. So that's where the Learning Blades piece kind of comes in, as far as it being a great program that you can implement into middle school. Once the training is done, it's a really positive and powerful way to get the STEM initiative out across the school without it being overbearing for the teacher. I'm not going to say it's easy to implement, because that sounds a little degrading. That's not what I mean. But it's a great program and can cover a lot of bases. So, and the foundation of all of this is, and I've already mentioned a couple of these things with either or, we want to remove that stigma. But I talk about building from the bottom up. And as a former high school principal, I would, as for 10 years, I like to create analogies in my head. So I was thinking about during my time as a high school principal, we would go to these places where, these country schools to play a football game in the middle of nowhere. And they would have these amazing bands with just like hundreds of kids, and they're so good at playing their instruments. And you think, how did they do that out here in the country? Well, how did they get these kids so interested and so ingrained? And you talk to people about it, and you'd see the same thing in other areas, maybe an athletic team, maybe the band, maybe drama, it's whatever program. The answer is always the same. They start them when they're young. You don't wait till the kids in the ninth grade to give them a trumpet and say, here, learn how to play this. They start introducing those things in the earlier age. So that just kind of goes back to what, from a big picture idea, we want to get down in the lower grades and get students and parents plugged into the possibilities. We need parents to understand there are a lot of scholarships available in career and technical education, just like there are in athletics, just like there are in band, just like there are in academics. That there are a lot of excellent workforce opportunities and jobs waiting on people, that if they will there's credentials and certifications available that kids can get, and the day they walk out of high school, they can get excellent paying 40-hour-a-week jobs with insurance. And so we need to make sure people are aware of that. And so that's why I talk about that, building from the bottom up. Get down in those lower grades, plant those seeds, and get things growing. In another area, the new enrollment and integrated credit process, that's another area we're working on. When I talk about integrated credit, as we work through our course of study revisions, we have core teachers and career tech teachers working together to create plans of instruction, and we're hoping to align standards in a way that we can have career tech courses count as core credit. So maybe in health science, for example, the student takes a certain sequence of health science courses that could count as one of their core science credits, which would allow more flexibility in their schedule, allow them to complete the health science program. That's something they're really interested in. We would rather see a student that wants to go to nursing school take more health science classes and maybe not take the environmental science classes they really don't need per se. As long as they're getting the foundation, we're good. And let's get them into more kinesiology and more human anatomy and physiology kind of thing. So that's some of the stuff that we've been working on. And last, the partnerships that we've got going with Alabama Works and ACCCP, the community college system, and AIDT. These are incredibly important partnerships, and we are working really hard to try to align our efforts and do the things that we need to do to create a system that invokes a pipeline that allows for students, again, whether they go to college or not is irrelevant. We want them to start in K-12, explore the careers, get prepared for certain careers, go into the workforce or go into college, and eventually they land in the workforce, whatever the case may be. It's important that we are aligned and working together. Nick Moore, you're going to hear from later. You and I are working great together, and we're trying really hard to align. Give you another analogy. You're planting a garden. If you spray the herbicide in one row and you put the pesticide in one row and you plow one row and you throw the seed out on one row, technically everybody's done their job, but the garden is not going to flourish. It's not going to work. So we have to make sure we're doing everything in a line and we're doing it in order and we're working together to make sure that we get the product that we want and we're giving our students the best opportunity. So I probably rambled on too long there, Sheila. I'm sorry, but there's my contact information. And that's just some of the highlights of some of the things that we've got going on. And I think that Learning Blades is a great program to help us in those middle grade areas, in particular K-12 in general, but late elementary, middle grade is really strong. And encourage everyone, if you don't already have an account, to get one and look at all the options that you have available.
I mean, I am in love with your analogies. Those were great. I love the idea. I mean, we think about music. And yeah, we don't start them playing their instrument in 10th grade and then tell them they're going in that field. So I'm going to steal some of those. I'm just warning you already. You'll start hearing those from me now. And really love your vision and how you're approaching this. And I will say, as a person that has worked with many, many different states and workforce and education, I do feel Alabama is a little bit rare in this, where there is a lot of alignment. And, that is so important. I might steal that garden one too. But I would just love, honestly, Dr. Hull, for you to share, this is your first year as the superintendent over CTE. Was there anything, like, now you've had almost a year in there, was there anything that was like aha moment for you that, you really didn't realize either going into this position or, what you brought in? Is there anything?
No, it's been such an unusual year.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been trapped in this building for the most part. And I think we've talked, I had a pretty bad COVID experience around Christmas going through New Year's that really knocked me off kilter for a while there. But I would say that I always knew that it was important that the agencies work together, and I always knew there was some working together going on. But since I've been here in this position, that's the piece that I really realize now. It's just so important that we get right from the top and push down into the different agencies. Because what happens is we've got a lot of busy things going on, a lot of great things going on in different pockets and different areas. Yep. But if we're not connecting those dots, we're not getting, again, we're all doing our jobs and we could be doing well, but we don't really get the full benefit of all our work until we connect those dots and everybody knows what everybody's doing and understands how the whole process works.
Yep. Yeah. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know we're just thrilled to be able to work with you in this position and look forward to, and when you come up with any more of your analogies, just give me a call. I love to hear them. They're wonderful. And talk about alignment. I think our next speaker is really, that's kind of his middle name, I think, Nick Alignment Moore. I'm going to rename you, Nick. We have been so fortunate to get to work with Nick and his team over the last really 2.5, 3 years. I think we've known each other 3 or 4. As long as you've been there, I think I met you on your first or second week in the job. But Nick has a tremendous vision for how this all works together and alignment. And so I'd love to turn it over to you, Nick, to share a little bit about, workforce education, how the governor and you all see that alignment and how you want to continue to lead.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Boyington, and sorry that I've got to follow up Dr. Hull because it's going to have a hard time keeping up with him and all of the great suggestions and vision that he provided. But I say that in a joking way because very glad that Dr. Hull is in place, and I think he is bringing a tremendous amount of leadership and vision to the CTE department at State Department of Education. CTE has always been one of the bright spots, recent, at least in the last decade or two, in Alabama. But just like any good football coach, he's still in there at halftime and making adjustments and looking to run up the score. So thank you for your leadership, and also Dr. Mackey. And want to thank the Boyingtons as well for their partnership in Alabama. And as you said, Sheila, over the past several years, I think we have done a lot of good work together, not just between Learning Blade and the state, but also bringing in private sector partners like Boeing and several other partners that have put up their time, talent, and treasure to help put together you mentioned braided funding. The Learning Blade project in Alabama is a great example of braided funding, to where we have taken funds from the Workforce Innovation or Opportunity Act. A lot of people know that as WIOA, that funds our public workforce system. So the Department of Commerce has been a partner here, the State Department of Education, of course, and Dr. Hull and Dr. Mackey, but also Boeing and other private sector partners, all under the leadership of the governor. Why this is so important to Governor Ivey is that we've got a tremendous amount of experiential deficits. And this is not just a problem for our youngest learners, it's also an issue for adults. And so the good thing about Learning Blade is that the way we have put this solution together, it's really a 2-generation strategy for mitigating experiential deficits. So we've all heard people say, well, we don't know what you can be if you don't know what there is, or if you don't know what there is to be, right? And so it's a hard time to understand what's out there if you don't know, what the experiences are. And so a lot of our kids will pass by a factory and there's all kinds of great stuff going on in that factory, but because they don't know what there is to be, they don't know what they want to be in that factory or any other one of these experiences. So part of how this is a 2-generation approach is not only working with kids that don't know what they want to be yet because they don't know what's out there, but also for parents who might have a literacy or a numeracy deficit. And the best way to work with them to reach that deficit is through the prism of working with their kids. And so people will open up and can even be gaining skills through these missions while they're working with their kids. So we decided to make this not only available at the K-12 level, but also to all Alabamians that are in our public workforce system. And so we did not know the amount of foresight going into this, that just a few months after the governor agreed to do that, that we would have the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And since March of last year, we've now had well over 1 million people file initial unemployment claim. But thank God that they're not all still unemployed. I mean, our unemployment rate peaked at over 10%. Now it's back down to 3.8%. But a lot of that is because 2 factors. We had a fairly resilient set of industries, and then also a lot of robust mechanisms like Learning Blade to help people understand what is next for them. So if you were maybe working 2 or 3 jobs in February of last year, making ends meet, but not on a pathway to self-sufficiency, now all of a sudden we recognize that we've got thousands of jobs that were open last February that we couldn't fill because we just didn't have enough people that were willing to make the shift or didn't have the right set of skills. And so our strategy is to take those 1 million+ folks, and again, a lot less than that now, but in thinking about all the people that just were not in the labor force even before the pandemic, and then get them on a pathway. So there's also going to help make sure that from an equity imperative that we're meeting the needs of diverse learners. I will say that we're expanding broadband in the state, but it hadn't met it down in the capital yet. So I'm sorry I broke up there for a second. That's pretty funny when we're trying to hit the last house on dirt road, but it doesn't even work down here in the basement. So that happens from time to time. But a lot of this also is about intentionality. So career exploration and preparation is nothing if it's not part of a system. So taking this back to strong start, strong finish, and why the governor got so interested in career exploration. So in putting together a strategy that connects earliest years of learning through birth, through early childhood education, all the way through the workforce, the governor laid out 5 benchmarks. And the first one was pre-K readiness, making sure that we're working with families through fatherhood initiatives, through home visiting initiatives, so that students are ready at 4th grade, be ready for pre-K. And then pre-K success and school readiness, so that we've got students in a high quality early childhood experience ready for kindergarten. Dr. Hull and Dr. Mackey can tell you so much of what we do on a day-to-day basis in K-12 is trying to make up for the fact that students were behind from the very day that they got in the classroom. So trying to get people caught up to their peers in more affluent areas, that's a challenge. So the third benchmark of literacy and numeracy, the governor calls the blocking and tackling of education. Just like football, if you got a team that can't do the basics of blocking and tackling, you don't need to try to come up with any complicated offense, defensive scheme. You got to get those basics down. Same thing with literacy and numeracy. But that leads into the 4th benchmark, which is college and career readiness, and that starts with career exploration. That starts with, in the earliest grades, integrating career exploration standards. So that's why we're happy with Perkins 5, that you can have career exploration down into the lower grades. And with Dr. Hull's vision, we've got a lot of integrative programs. If you haven't seen WeCats down in Enterprise, I would commend that to you to look at how we're combining work-based learning, employability skills, and career exploration. And for 4-year-olds, they're actually running a business. And so you can get more about that, or just Google it and you'll be impressed. I certainly was. And then that all leads to success in our ultimate benchmark, which is students that are attaining a post-secondary credential of value. So not just a high school degree, but also a post-secondary credential that leads to long-term labor market value. So career exploration cannot be seen as something that is a one-off, and it's great to have experiences to where we get everybody together and do something just for the day, but this has got to be part of a extensive ecosystem that begins with the earliest years, is connected to robust exploration of all of our clusters. Our career coaches are part of that system. And so ultimately students get to choose their own adventure in a system where academic and technical skills are complementary. We're not even really saying college and career readiness as much as we're saying career pathway readiness. We're showing how the skills that someone's learning in a CTE class are transferable to general academics and vice versa. So but the game-based and the more, let's just be honest, it's fun when students get on Learning Blade. They're able to not only explore all the different career clusters out there, but they're able to use that also in a way to kind of step back from the day-to-day grind. And there's been a lot of trauma also that students have experienced in the last year or so. For that reason too, the modality that we're delivering the experience is meeting the needs of students in this environment. So I will close by also thanking everybody here that's a partner. I'm looking to see on the line here of all the folks that have tuned in with us, and everybody here is uniquely involved in this work. And we've got people from our regional workforce councils, Institute of Deaf and Blind, university partners, community-based organizations, school systems, and the list goes on. So the work that we do here in the dungeon and the Capitol really would not mean a hill of beans if it wasn't for y'all in the field that are implementing this work, that are telling us what's working, what's not, And that kind of reciprocal feedback loop is certainly appreciated. And we really just kind of stand on y'all's shoulders as far as knowing what works and what doesn't. And from the feedback we've gotten so far, it's been pretty universal that Learning Blade is working in your schools, that students love it, families love it, and we're using this to connect students to opportunity and education to the economy. So thanks again, Mrs. Boyington. It's been a pleasure joining you today.
Well, thank you so much, Nick. And I think thanks goes to you as well, leading a lot of this effort and really sort of spearheading. And I think what was very exciting for us is a couple of weeks ago, Governor Ivey announced that the economic development activity in 2020 during a pandemic generated close to $5 billion. Have you frozen again? Okay, no, you're still there. Okay, so I make sure you're very still. Really has generated close to $5 billion of new capital investment and almost 10,000 jobs. So, I think that is a true testament to this work that you guys are doing. Everybody, as you mentioned on the call here, definitely a shout out to Boeing for their public-private partnership with the state on this work. But, what do you think is really some of that employers are seeing that they want to come to Alabama to really grow their companies?
I think it's important for employers to understand that we've got a intentional talent development pipeline, and that we're not just in the business of only developing on-demand workforce. We can do that, and we do it very well. But folks want to understand that we are also aligning our education and workforce systems to our economic development priorities. Now, that doesn't mean we're tracking students or preparing them to work somewhere just because they happen to live at that place, but we're preparing for students for opportunities that exist in the state today, for opportunities that exist in the region, and the jobs that we know they're going to be coming online in the future. So when you've got intentional career development, talent development, you also can then have intentional economic development to where it's not just a willy-nilly exercise of, well, just any way it goes, but we're planning years in advance to capitalize on the comparative and competitive advantages of each of our 7 regions, and then looking to bolster those sectors that really could provide a lot of opportunity for people in those areas.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so much, Nick, for being with us today and for that amazing leadership. And definitely Governor Ivey, it was the last thing we did before the pandemic set in was March 9th last year. We toured some schools in the Huntsville area with the governor. Very excited to do that with her. Had we ever known what was heading our way next? No idea. It's crazy.
You were one of my last meetings
in person
for almost a year. So
hey, you were my very last meeting before I went home and hibernated now for the last year. But I've been vaccinated. I'm ready to go out again. So we're gonna switch our topics here now and talk a little bit definitely about computer science. I mean, not that it's really different from what we're talking about, because I love what Dr. Hull said about, every student needs CTE because everybody's going to have a career, right? So I think that that's a big piece. I think the other thing that every student needs now is some exposure to computer science. That's pretty well been told across the country, given the demand of the jobs. And so we're thrilled today to have Gina McCarley from A+ College Ready joining us today to talk a little bit about the work that you all are doing in computer science and how this plays into sort of this alignment of what Alabama is so famous for. So Gina, welcome.
Thank you. I think I'm going to play off of what Dr. Hull mentioned earlier about the students playing their instruments. I want to share with you today some opportunities for teachers to be trained to help those students play those instruments. And in this case, it's computer science. With the new legislation, this coming school year, every middle school is going to be required to offer computer science by a qualified teacher. And to be qualified, teachers can be qualified in 2 ways. One, passing the praxis, or the second way is to have course-specific training and apply for a permit. So that's what I wanted to share today, is some of those opportunities to get those teachers trained for teaching computer science for 6th through 8th grade. So if you could go on to the next slide. One of the state approved courses is Computer Science Discoveries, but we also have those digital literacy and computer science standards for Alabama. So the training that we're offering for the year 1 computer science course for middle school is Computer Science Discoveries Alabama, and we qualify it with that Alabama because you couldn't just go out straight and do the Computer Science Discoveries course and meet all the requirements for the Alabama digital literacy and computer science training. In that training, there's 6 units, and I've got the units listed here and some of the things that students will be doing. They'll be using App Lab, Game Lab, Make Code. And once teachers do this training, if they have a professional certificate, they can apply for a course-specific permit that will be added on to their certification, and it'll last for 3 years. So teachers will be qualified to teach those courses. We call it year 1 because, you know, middle schools do it different for different schools. Some offer it for 6th graders, some offer it in the 7th, some offer it in 8th. So that's why we call it year 1. But if you're only teaching one course in middle school, computer science, this would be the course you would want to teach. It's those basic foundational skills that we're going to get in there for that. So if you could go to the next slide. This summer, we're also going to be training on a year 2 course that we've developed, and we have that mapped to the DLCS standards as well for 6th through 8th. That year 1 course, if you teach that course, no matter what grade you teach, 6th, 7th, or 8th grade, you're going to hit those standards for those grades. But this summer, we're going to offer a year 2 course for teachers to be trained on, because there's lots of middle schools that have really caught on to the pipeline, and they want to offer more than 1 year, and they want to offer different content. So we've developed 4 standalone units. So if a school teaches it like a semester, a 9 weeks, a full year, they've got an option, and they don't have to be taught in any specific order. They can just kind of pick and choose the order or the units that they want to teach for that year 2 course. And if you will move on to the next slide, I'm going to share our training opportunities. And here at A+, we have program schools, and we're going to offer in-person training because of COVID, you know, to keep the training room small to our program schools. But we are fortunate that the State Department has sponsored training this summer, and I have to apologize. I have the labeling wrong. The July 6th through 9th is virtual for middle school, and the 13th through the 16th is in person. So I had those flip-flops. That was my mistake. But what we've got going on is we have some high school AP training that's going on in person. So I see where I got the mix up. But those virtual State Department sponsored trainings, it'll be June the 22nd through the 25th and July 6th through 9th for middle school. That's at no cost to the teacher. So you can go and do those 4 days virtual training. You complete all the requirements, and you can apply for a permit to be added to your professional certificate for teaching the course. And if you want more information, you can go to aplusala.org and go to our events calendar about signing up for those trainings if you know anyone that wants to sign up for that. Okay. If you could go to the next slide, please. We have other training opportunities. I recognized a lot of names on today, and there's a lot of high school teachers. I'm a CTE teacher myself, so my heart's with career technical education, and I recognize a lot of teachers through that. We have other training opportunities. We have CS fundamentals for K through 5. We have CS principles and CSA, and through our State Department funding sponsorship, you can do those trainings at no cost. And we also have sponsorship for the CS fundamentals training. I want to add one last thing before I pass it along to someone else, but Mr. Moore mentioned about that talent pipeline. And we truly want to develop that talent pipeline. You know, you've heard the saying, a rising tide lifts all ships. I feel like we've really got a rising tide coming for middle school. We trained over 235 teachers last summer, and we expect at least equivalent this summer. If you are a teacher listening and you're a high school teacher, or you're related to any in the high school in any way, you need to go to your middle school feeder schools and you need to tell them about these opportunities, because this is only going to improve the students' skills that you're going to be getting in a few years. I can really see great things happening with our AP scores and our high school students in just a few years when this middle school really takes hold and we do truly develop that talent pipeline. So I'm expecting really good things for our state.
Well, great. Thank you so much. And I think if anyone has a question, if you guys can type it into the chat box, we're going to try to ask our speakers toward the end of this session. And thank you so much, Gina, for laying out the way that computer science is going into middle schools. Honestly, a little bit about how we got involved in this was actually started through Governor Hutchinson in Arkansas, your neighbor up there, recognizing the value of computer science. Obviously, Governor Ivey definitely does as well. So how do you feel about career awareness? Because I know you were a CTE teacher as well. So making sure that kids understand that career piece as they're taking these computer science courses. I'd love for you to talk a minute about, you know, where do you see those intersections as well?
Yeah, I think it's essential. You know, there's so many kids, and that's one thing through the AP Computer Science Principles course they learn, but we need to get it into them earlier, like middle school. Students see computer science as coding. They see it as one thing, and the career exploration part is essential for students to see. You know, I taught high school computer science. Had a student one day, and she said, "Oh, I'm just not good at this. I'm just not good at this." But when we moved on and we started talking about big data, and we started pulling real information from data, boy, she was the star in the class. And she saw that I can understand coding, but I don't just have to code to have a career in computer science. And I think that's very essential. And the worst thing we can do early on in middle school is to break students and make them hate a career path just because they see it as one thing. They need to be able to have their eyes open and see the many opportunities they have. And I put my email in the chat because I know training brings up a lot of questions. In case someone has questions later about training and the opportunities, I'd be glad to help them with it.
Yes, and thank you so much for that work, because I think as you talked about it, you know, that connection between the careers and what they might do are actually really what will get more kids interested in the computer science.
Right.
Sure.
And to open their eyes to what it actually is and actually is in the real world, and not just what it is maybe on a TV show.
Yes, a lot of CSI going on, I feel,
Right.
but you know,
Yeah.
we don't need a bunch of CSI, but we do
Right.
need a lot of big data. Imagine how much big data was used during this pandemic.
Yes.
If you go every day in New York Times or USA Today, tracking of the data is really what told the story, and is still telling, unfortunately, the story. But thank you so much to you and Carol for your tremendous work, and marked at A+. You guys are doing amazing work, and we're thrilled to have you today. So as we just start to go and wrap up, you know, it's really important, of course, you guys have gotten to hear sort of that higher level conversation. We love to hear from teachers, you know, teachers that are in the classroom with the students, working. I call them really in the trenches. I mean, everybody here definitely has a piece of this, as Nick mentioned, but you know, the teachers really are there. And so we're very thrilled today to have Marie Moore, who is a computer science discoveries teacher, just talked a little bit about that. And so obviously you have been trained. And so that is really good as well. And she is currently holding the title of the most active user of Learning Blade in Alabama. So we're very excited to have her here today, Marie, to tell us a little bit about what you do. And I love your slides. So it's really energizing to me. So take it away, Marie.
Okay, thank you. As she said, Ms. Boyington said, I'm Marie Moore. My background is I'm a National Board Science certified science teacher, but now I'm currently the computer science discoveries teacher. And this year with COVID, we just had to think outside the box. We did not, I mean, we started our year by passing out our Chromebooks from our computer science class to students, knowing we would never see them back. So we had to kind of just change gears. And so I was trying to find something that would kind of be my duct tape, the thing that would work for everything for all my areas. And that was Learning Blade. I do a lot of different things with my kids, but Learning Blade was the one constant that I felt met all my standards. I could do my numeracy lessons, my reading lessons, and the career tech piece. And I just felt like it really helped with all my students. My kids are an elective class. They don't get to choose. So I have all different levels. And so I use the missions to help them be exposed to different tools and the teammates. And my students were exposed to more careers and tools than they have in the last 3 years, thanks to Learning Blade. I chose to do express missions because middle school students' attention span's not as long. Also was in a very unique situation this year. I would have students from another teacher. She didn't have a remote period. So at one point I had like 85 remote students. So this was something that I could plug them in quickly. And then when they left, they would go back to her class, or they were quarantined. I was quarantined. So it was a revolving door this year. And Learning Blade was a program that I felt like it gave them all the information, and it was easy to be able to plug them in quickly, because I felt like some of the coding, they had coding experience here, but some of this, it wouldn't be available for my kids. So this is just my virtual screen or virtual classroom in Schoology. And this I would have a WebEx each week. And this was just kind of how I would put my information for my students. If it wasn't for Learning Blade during COVID, I don't think I could have made it this year. We have teachers crying, leaving. It's more than this is my 26th year to teach, and this was the most stress ever. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying it was. It was a pandemic. So Learning Blade really was that tool that I used. The express missions. I have kids for a semester at a time. And so again, we use the express missions, and that way they could use the tools and teammates. I love that it exposed the kids to the math lessons, the reading, the context clues. It's amazing how this coordinates with, I'm career tech, so I do the equip or BIC, and all this is incorporated in that. And all these standards go back to national boards about knowing your students. And I just felt like this one piece incorporated everything. I have students, we are in a feeder pattern with a high school that has a lot of these career tech jobs, and a lot of kids, like they mentioned, they think it's only a 4-year degree, but I have students that in 6th grade struggled, and now they're getting welding awards. So they need to see that as a career tech. And even though I could tell them that, they saw the purpose through these missions. I think it's important, like we've all discussed with the STEM jobs. I have 2 kids, 18 and 22, and for them to see it themselves and to do these missions, that way they can see all the different jobs out there. And kids are so with their attention span, they need the video, they need to set their own pace. And this was the perfect tool, because these are kids that are, they're on TikTok all the time. So they're not going to listen as well as if they could do this, and then we can talk about it. I use a lot of variety of different tools to teach my kids, but this was the one. I also use the entrepreneurship for my FBLA group to use the tools and teammates. And again, the kids were just exposed to different careers that they didn't see as an accountant, and they didn't see these positions as different career tech positions. And so I just really can't praise Learning Blade enough because it really helped me survive. The kids have learned a whole lot of information that I don't feel like I could have. Normally we can go on field trips. I take them to the high school. They can see the different, none of that was available, of course, this year. And it's interactive. So, I mean, you can't show a kid a video and then do what they can on this when they can go through the missions and see the progress. And it also helped just with the revolving door that we had of a kid would be in my room and then they would get quarantined for 2 weeks and then they wouldn't be back and then they would go back to another teacher. So for me, it was just the constant they needed, and they could pick up when they came in, and we could communicate through the WebEx. So it was a great tool for me and my kids this year. I just can't stress enough the importance of STEM careers. I know everyone said that, but as a mom that has 2 kids that hopefully will be independent, it's that reoccurring theme that keeps going back. And it's just important that we start this in 6th grade, and that way they can see the importance. That's it.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Marie. And I mean, I say this, definitely our healthcare workers are our heroes, but our educators at all the different entities, those either state level, et cetera, all the way down to definitely to the classroom teachers. You guys have been our heroes, to your point.
Thank you.
One day you're in school, one day you're not, back and forth, people here and everything. And so we're just thrilled that we are able to be a part of what you're offering. And for those of you that are on the call and don't know about our backpack app, you may want to check that out, because with Chromebooks now, you can use the Learning Blade backpack app available for free on Google that will allow students to actually download these missions, these lessons onto their Chromebook, use it at home, even when they have no internet access. Because the digital divide has become more divided during this pandemic, for sure, as you well know, Marie. Students that had internet at home could kind of keep up, and those that didn't. And so we were thrilled to be able to release in January a backpack app that I think is, definitely contributing to that. I'd love for you to talk about the fact that we do have a partnership with FlashForge, which is a national 3D printing company. And if you complete a certain number of lessons in Learning Blade, you get a free 3D printer from us. So I'd love to hear what you thought. And I think you guys won the 3D printer, and what your students might have thought, and some things you're thinking about, given that you have this new 3D printer now.
Yeah, we were very excited. And to be honest, the kids so far, we've just been able to do the demos. We have not really got into it. We have a lot of technological difficulties of getting things downloaded, and so we're still in the process of that. But just having that in the classroom, and the kids, that a lot of these kids, this is the first time for them to see a 3D printer, so they were very excited. We actually were printing some items today, so that's something I look forward to. And there's so much in Learning Blade, like I just haven't even got that deep into, so I'm excited about some of the other things in there. And that's one of the parts. I actually signed up. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I signed up for some PD on that, and also the technical support that I've had, because there's a lot of questions that come up through the year, and all I have to do is shoot an email and I get, hey, what's this code? Or I need to add this kid, or this child is not here. So that's been great too, because a lot of times we don't get that technical support. So I want to thank you, Josh. He helped me all year this year, so I appreciate that.
Yes, well, great. Well, thank you again, Marie, for being part of our webinar today, and for your amazing work with your students. Your students are very lucky to have you. And I am also very lucky to have, as you mentioned, Joshua Snyderman, who is our Vice President over implementation, and his team for the work that they do to support our states. We have 7 statewide contracts with Learning Blade. So definitely growing. Alabama was the 3rd. So you guys were definitely in the beginning, and, just thrilled to be able to work with each of you this way. I just want to thank Gina, Dr. Hall, definitely Nick and Marie for being part of our webinar today. If there are any questions, I'm not sure I saw any pop up in the chat box. I think some things were mentioned about Project Lead the Way, which is a wonderful program, really for the deeper sort of dive into STEM careers, where we consider Learning Blade to be that far and wide, and for any student to actually have exposure to careers, which is the number one reason kids don't major in STEM, is just they don't know about the career. So pretty simple, but creating a resource that's effective in that. And I also do want to give a shout out to Tina Watts at Boeing for their tremendous support of this work as we launched it in the state, and definitely Joe Bonner, the chief of staff for the governor as well, has been really supportive of this work, along with, of course, Dr. Mackey and Dr. Hall. So, so we're coming right up on the hour. If you do not have a Learning Blade license, as we mentioned, you can go to learningblade.com/AL and sign up for a free account. Any organization in the state is eligible for a free account. Everything that Marie mentioned, including all the tech support training and everything, is all included. The schools, the organizations do not have to pay another dime. So we want to make sure that everyone understands that. And again, thank you so much for the great work that you all are doing in Alabama. We're thrilled and honored to be part of it. And stay tuned for what might come up hopefully next year, when we kind of maybe get back to normal life. I'm praying very hard that that's going to happen. And again, thank you, Marie and Gina, and definitely to others for being a part. Have a wonderful evening, everybody, and please stay safe. Thanks again.